Some gas stations are temples, holy ground. They got roller dogs that have been spinning on those greasy little logs of destiny since the Carter administration, coffee thick enough to patch a tire, and a glorious perfume of diesel and regret. They're beautiful. They're the real America, the places where the blood of the country flows, one grimy, caffeinated trucker at a time. You can get a shower that costs $5 and has enough water pressure to strip paint, a hot meal that'll stick to your ribs for 600 miles, and a conversation with a guy who just hauled 20 tons of live bees from Florida to Washington. That's life, right there. An hour before my life went sideways, I was sitting in one of those palaces, a place called the Greasy Skillet, off the I-15. The waitress, a woman named Marge with a beehive hairdo that defied gravity and the laws of physics, called me Honey Bun and kept my coffee cup full of black gold. I was in heaven. This was not one of those places. This was a gas station in California, somewhere east of L.A., where the rich people go to pretend they're roughing it. The sign said, "The Oasis," but it was a mirage designed to suck money out of designer wallets. Instead of beef jerky, they had artisanal kale chips that cost $12 a bag and tasted like dried lawn clippings. Instead of coffee, they had something called a single-origin pour-over, which involved a skinny kid in an apron with a man bun taking 10 minutes to drip hot water over 3 beans into a tiny glass beaker. The bathrooms probably had a mint on the pillow, and a guy whose only job was to spritz the air with potpourri after you used it. It was a goddamn insult to the open road. The air didn't smell like honest work. It smelled like lavender and entitlement, a combination that made my nose hairs curl up and die. I was only there 'cause old Bessie was thirsty, and my options were limited. My rig, my 40-ton home on wheels, doesn't run on fancy bottled water, and my own tank was feeling pretty empty, too. I'd just demolished a glorious greasy double cheeseburger I'd had the foresight to bring with me from the Greasy Skillet. A masterpiece of American engineering, with 2 patties so juicy they were practically mooing, melted American cheese that glued the whole thing together, thick-cut bacon, and a healthy smear of Marge's secret barbecue sauce. I was sitting right there in my cab, a steel Titan parked amongst the Teslas and Porsches, taking a bite so big it would make a dentist weep. A woman in yoga pants that cost more than my tires was filling up her electric SUV and staring at me like I was sacrificing a goat on an altar of cholesterol. I caught her eye, gave her a slow, deliberate wink with a mouthful of freedom, and watched a little dollop of sauce land on my shirt. A badge of honor. She looked horrified and scurried away, probably to go call her therapist about the trauma of witnessing a man enjoy his food. Life, my friends, was delicious. I swung down from the cab, my heavy boots hitting pavement that was probably hand-polished by orphans every morning. I started filling Bessie's massive tank, the thick, pungent smell of diesel feeling like the only real thing in this whole plastic paradise. The numbers on the pump spun faster than a politician's promises. I leaned against the side of my truck, feeling like a grizzly bear that had wandered into a poodle convention, and that's when I saw her. She was standing next to a white Range Rover that was so clean it hurt my eyes. It didn't have a single speck of dust on it. It had probably never seen a dirt road in its life. She looked like she'd been assembled in a secret Swiss lab that only builds weapons of mass distraction. Tall, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail so tight it looked like it was giving her a facelift, legs that went on for days, all wrapped up in a little white tennis dress that was brighter than my future. She was arguing with a guy who looked like his name was probably Chad, or Skip, or something else you'd name a sailboat. He was wearing a pink polo shirt with the collar popped khaki shorts that ended well above the knee, and these little boat shoes with no socks. The international uniform of guys you just want to punch for no reason at all. Their fight was quiet, but it was ugly. The rich have a way of fighting that's all sharp edges and quiet venom. You could see it in the way her jaw was clenched so tight a diamond would shatter between her teeth, the way he kept gesturing dismissively with his phone like it was a scepter, and she was just a troublesome peasant. I was too far away to hear it all, but I caught snippets carried on the lavender-scented breeze. Words like unreasonable, optics, and portfolio. He wasn't arguing with a woman. He was negotiating with a fluctuating asset. This little tantrum is going to reflect poorly on the quarterly statement, darling, I thought I heard him say, his voice thin and reedy. He said something short and sharp, didn't even look at her, then climbed into his sterile white box on wheels and peeled out, the tires making a brief, pathetic squeal on the pristine asphalt. He just left her there, at a gas station. She stood frozen for a second, a perfect statue of disbelief, watching him go. Then her shoulders sagged, just for a moment, and the flawless mask cracked. You could see the precise moment the fantasy died. She turned, and her eyes, big blue and currently stormy as a hurricane over the Gulf, landed on me. She looked at me, a 300-pound gorilla in a faded t-shirt with a fresh barbecue sauce stain that was now my prize ribbon. She looked at my rig, old Bessie, who's got more character in her rusty grill than that whole damn parking lot combined. Then she looked back at her own car, a shiny white Bentley convertible parked nearby, looking like a giant useless mint that had been left to melt in the sun. A decision clicked into place behind those blue eyes. It was a tangible thing, like a switch being flipped. The sag was gone. The steel was back. She started walking towards me. Her tennis shoes were the fancy kind, but they clicked on the asphalt like high heels, a rhythmic, determined sound, a time bomb counting down. She didn't slow down. She walked with the kind of purpose that makes small animals run for cover. Right up to my rig, she reached up and yanked the passenger door open with a surprising grunt of effort. The scent of 1,000 expensive flowers, something like gardenias and defiance, flooded my cab, doing battle with the lingering ghosts of burgers past. "Are you heading east?" she asked. Her voice was shaky, but it was coated in steel. Now, a normal man would have said, "Lady, are you crazy?" A smart man would have pointed her towards the artisanal chip aisle, advised her to try the kombucha, and gotten the hell out of there before he ended up on an episode of Dateline. But I've never been accused of being normal, and smart is a matter of opinion. My opinion is that when a goddess falls out of the sky and wants to get in your truck, you don't ask questions. You just thank your lucky stars and pray your pants are clean. I looked at this angel in tennis whites, standing in the door of my cab like she was boarding a private jet to a better life. I looked at the open road stretching out behind her, a black ribbon promising escape, and I gave her the best damn grin I had, the one that's gotten me into and out of more trouble than I can count. "Sure am, darling," I rumbled, my voice sounding like gravel in a cement mixer, all the way. "Good," she said, and with a surprising lack of grace, clambered up into the cab, tennis dress and all. She landed in the seat with a soft, "Oof." "Drive." I hung the nozzle back on the pump, screwed on Bessie's gas cap with a satisfying squeak, and climbed into my throne. The woman, this angel of chaos, was sitting ramrod straight in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead through the windshield, clutching a small white purse that probably cost more than my entire engine. She was actively trying not to touch anything, as if the cab's honest grime might be contagious. I fired up the engine, Bessie roared to life, a beautiful, deafening sound that made a guy filling up his Tesla literally jump and drop his charging cable. I loved it. The whole truck vibrated with raw power. It was real. "Name's Sam," I said, pulling the big yellow knob for the air brake. The hiss was music to my ears. "Just drive," she repeated, her voice tight as a banjo string. "You got it, boss." I threw Bessie in gear and rolled out of that sterile hellhole, leaving a $50,000 purse's worth of diesel on my company card and a $250,000 Bentley sitting abandoned in the parking lot like a forgotten toy. The woman in yoga pants was still staring, her mouth wide open, probably trying to process the scene for her next brunch story. I gave her another big greasy wink for the road. The last thing I saw in my mirror was her fumbling for her phone, and I knew the clock was officially ticking. The first 10 minutes were a symphony of uncomfortable silence. The only sounds were the deep hum of the tires on the asphalt and the faint, panicked breathing coming from the passenger seat. My cab, my sanctuary of solitude and questionable smells, suddenly felt like a confessional booth with a very, very well-dressed sinner in it. I could feel her tension radiating across the space between us. She was actively trying to levitate, so no part of her pristine white dress would touch the well-worn fabric of the passenger seat. Her eyes darted around, taking in the dashboard full of faded maps held up by peeling tape, the air freshener shaped like a pine tree that had given up the ghost in 2011, and the collection of empty coffee cups on the floor that formed a sort of geological record of my journey. Her perfectly sculpted nose was wrinkled in a way that was both insulting and ridiculously adorable. I decided to break the ice, the Sam McCarty way. I reached into my snack stash between the seats, a holy cavern of processed delights. My fingers bypassed the peanuts and the pretzels and found what I was looking for, a king-sized Slim Jim. I ripped it open with my teeth. The snap echoed in the cab like a gunshot. "Want one?" I offered, holding the glorious meat stick out to her. "It's teriyaki flavor, exotic." She looked at the processed meat stick like I'd just handed her a live eel. Her eyes widened and she recoiled slightly. "No, thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm fine. Suit yourself. More for me." I took a huge, satisfying bite. It was magnificent. Chewy, salty, vaguely meat-flavored, the food of the gods. "Got some warm Dr. Pepper here if you're thirsty." I gestured with my head toward a can rolling around by her feet, making little clanking noises every time I shifted gears. She stared at the can, as if it might be a bomb. "Do you have any sparkling water? San Pellegrino, perhaps, or even a Fiji?" I let out a bark of a laugh that startled her. It was so loud it made the dashboard vibrate. "Lady, the only thing sparkling in this cab is my personality. Tap water from a jug or truck stop coffee that'll dissolve a spoon. Those are the options on the McCarty Express." She finally cracked. A little bit of the tension went out of her shoulders. She turned in her seat and looked at me for the first time. Really looked at me. Not at the stain on my shirt, but at my face. "My name is Serafina." "Serafina," I repeated, rolling the name around in my mouth. It tasted expensive, like something you'd name a yacht. "Figures. Well, Serafina, you're a long way from the tennis court." Her perfect composure crumbled. A single, perfect tear traced a path down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily, as if disgusted with her own weakness. "My husband, Preston, we had a fight. He said I was being overly emotional." "Preston," I said, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Pink polo, no socks, drives like a jackass." She nodded, a flicker of surprise in her big blue eyes. "You saw him. Hard to miss. He radiates punchability. He's a data analyst, she explained, the words starting to tumble out now that the dam was broken. He analyzes everything: the stock market, our caloric intake, my mood fluctuations. This morning he told me my cortisol levels were suboptimal for a productive afternoon, and that I should consider a 5-minute guided meditation before our lunch with the Hendersons. I almost choked on my Slim Jim. I had to pull it out of my mouth to keep from inhaling it. He said that to you? For real? He tracks my sleep on an app. He has a spreadsheet for our relational synergy metrics. He treats me like a project to be optimized, she said, her voice thick with a bitterness that had been brewing for years. An asset. After our fight, he wanted me to get in my car and follow him home so we could recalibrate. I just couldn't. I couldn't be a line on his spreadsheet for one more second. Then I saw you. Me? I said, gesturing to my glorious 300-pound frame, which was currently expanding to fill the driver's seat. What about me? You were eating a hamburger in your truck, she said, like it was the most amazing revolutionary thing she'd ever seen. You looked happy. You looked free. You looked real. I'm so sick of things that aren't real. Folks, I'm just a guy who drives a truck and has a deep spiritual connection to fried foods. I'm not a hero. I'm not a savior. But in that moment, to this woman who lived in a sterile cage of spreadsheets and expectations, I was some kind of folk hero, the patron saint of barbecue sauce stains and authenticity. I swear, I could feel old Bessie's engine start to purr a little louder, proud of her driver. Well, darling, I said, my voice going a little softer than usual. You came to the right place. This old rig is as real as it gets. She's got dents, she's got scratches, and she smells like honest work and 1,000 miles of open road. I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. A smile. A real one, not the polite vacant kind she probably used at cocktail parties. It does have a certain aroma. That's the smell of freedom, Serafina, and maybe a few old French fries I lost under the seat last week. She actually laughed. It wasn't a polite country club giggle. It was a real throaty laugh that was rusty from disuse. The sound was incredible, like an engine that hadn't been turned over in years finally catching. The tension in the cab broke like a fever. She started asking questions about the truck, about the road, about me. I told her stories. I told her about the time I hauled a load of rubber chickens and one of the crates broke open, so every time I hit a bump, it sounded like a poultry massacre. I told her about a diner in Nebraska where the waitress, a 70-year-old woman named Flo, could balance 6 plates on one arm and called everyone sugar pie. I described, in loving detail, the difference between a West Coast burger, too much lettuce, and a proper Midwest smash burger, a greasy, cheesy work of art. For the first time, she leaned back in her seat. She was still a diamond in a junkyard, but she was starting to look comfortable. She wasn't levitating anymore. Her dress was officially touching the seat, a major milestone. I need to use the powder room, she said after a while, the phrase sounding ridiculous in the rumbling cab. The what? The restroom. Ah, well, we passed the last real one about an hour ago. Next stop ain't for another 50 miles, and it's a real dive. Or there's nature's bathroom. I gestured out the window at the endless desert. She looked horrified. You mean outside? Yep, plenty of bushes. Just watch for snakes. Her face went pale. I'll wait. I decided to push my luck. I showed her how to use the CB radio. She was hesitant at first, looking at the microphone like it was a foreign object. Go on, I urged. Just say hello. Your handle can be Tennis Pro. She rolled her eyes but took the mic. She held it awkwardly, like it might bite. Hello, truckers," she said, her prim, educated voice crackling over the airwaves. "This is Tennis Pro." The radio exploded. A half-dozen gravelly voices immediately responded, a chorus of lonely road dogs who'd just heard an angel. "Well, hello there, Tennis Pro. What's your 20, sweet thing? Come back. You got your ears on, little lady. We got a smoky report at mile marker 82, so keep it clean. Breaker 19, that's the prettiest voice I've heard all week. You need a convoy, darling? Big Ben here. I got your back door." "What does got your back door mean?" she whispered to me, her eyes wide. "Means he'll watch for cops behind us. It's not as dirty as it sounds, usually." "Whoa," she said, dropping the mic back in its holder like it was hot. Her face was flushed. "They're very enthusiastic. Welcome to the party." I chuckled. That's the most action this channel's seen since a bear was spotted at the way station. Now you know my life. The sun started to dip low, painting the California desert in fiery orange and deep purple. The landscape, which can feel so empty and hostile during the day, suddenly looked beautiful, cinematic. We were in our own little world, a rolling metal bubble rumbling through the twilight. The cab was filled with the warm glow of the dashboard lights. The mood shifted. The cab felt smaller, warmer. The vast space between the driver's seat and the passenger seat seemed to shrink with every mile. "Preston never would have done this," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper, watching the last sliver of sun disappear behind the mountains. "Picked up a stranger, drove off without a destination. He has our entire lives mapped out on a shared calendar until the year 2045. It includes quarterly financial reviews and biannual colonoscopies." "Sounds exciting," I said dryly. "A real page-turner." "It's like being a ghost in my own life," she murmured. Then she turned to me, her eyes catching the last rays of sunlight. They were electric. I haven't felt alive in years, not until I climbed into this truck. And then she moved. She slid across the bench seat, a smooth, deliberate motion. The space between us, which had been a demilitarized zone of culture shock, vanished. Her bare leg pressed against the denim of my jeans. The fabric of her dress was thin and cool, but the heat coming off her was anything but. It was like leaning against a furnace. "Thank you, Sam," she whispered, her voice husky now. My throat went dry. My whole vocabulary, which is usually pretty robust when it comes to burgers and horsepower, shrank down to about 3 words. "Ain't done nothin' yet," I said, my own voice a low rumble. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a piston trying to escape its cylinder. I could feel the pulse in my neck. "Oh, I think you have," she said. She reached out and put her hand on my shoulder, her fingers light but firm. They traced the collar of my worn-out shirt, then moved to the side of my neck. Her touch was like a spark on dry tinder. "You know, for a man who loves greasy food, you smell surprisingly good." "It's the diesel," I managed to say, my brain short-circuiting. "It's an aphrodisiac, gets into the pores." She laughed again, that wonderful real laugh, low and throaty. "Is it?" She leaned in closer. The cab was filled with the scent of her perfume, a heady mix of flowers and something wild and musky that was all her. Her face was inches from mine. I could see the flecks of gold in her blue eyes. I could feel her breath on my cheek. The world outside the windows disappeared. There was only the humming of the engine and the humming in my blood. "I need to, check the tires," I said. It was the oldest, dumbest line in the book, but my brain had been hijacked by my libido and was no longer taking my calls. I pulled old Bessie off the highway, the turn signal clicking like a frantic heartbeat. I rumbled down a short dirt path to a scenic overlook I knew from 100 other trips. It was completely deserted. Just us, the truck, and a billion stars starting to pop out in the ink-black desert sky. I killed the engine, and the sudden roaring silence was deafening. Neither of us moved for a second. We just looked at each other in the dim, intimate glow of the dashboard lights. "The tires seem fine from here," she said, a sly, knowing smile playing on her lips. "Yeah," I breathed, my voice thick. Funny thing about that. And then there were no more words. She closed the final inch of distance and her lips met mine. It wasn't a gentle, exploratory kiss. It was desperate, hungry. It was the kiss of a woman who had been starved for something real, and she was trying to devour it whole. All that pent-up frustration with Preston and his spreadsheets and his relational synergy came pouring out. I was more than happy to oblige. My hand came up to cup the back of her neck, my fingers tangling in her perfect ponytail, pulling the band loose. Her blonde hair cascaded down around her shoulders, a silken waterfall in the dim light. "The back," she gasped against my mouth, her hands gripping my shirt. "Is there more room in the back?" A slow grin spread across my face. I felt like the king of the world. "Lady," I grinned, "you have no idea. The sleeper cab of a Peterbilt ain't the Ritz-Carlton, but it's my castle. It's a miracle of engineering, a whole little life packed into an 8-by-8-foot box behind the seats. There's a bunk, a small fridge, stocked with more Dr. Pepper and leftover pizza, a little closet for my clothes. It's my home, and right now, it felt like the most luxurious suite in Vegas. Getting back there was a clumsy, laughing, tangled affair. We stumbled through the curtain separating the cab from the sleeper, tripping over each other in the dark. Serafina was a whirlwind. The prim and proper trophy wife from the gas station was gone, replaced by a wildcat in tennis whites. That pristine white dress, the symbol of her old life, ended up in a heap on the floor next to my dirty boots and a copy of a well-worn trucking magazine. The contrast was about the hottest thing I'd ever seen. Her skin, pale and perfect in the moonlight filtering through the small window, was electric against my rough, calloused hands. She was all pent-up energy and frustrated desire, unleashed like a flash flood in a dry desert canyon. She explored every inch of my body with an archaeologist's curiosity, marveling at old scars from loading accidents and muscles she'd probably only ever seen in movies. "You're so solid," she whispered, her hands roaming over my chest and shoulders, her touch both delicate and demanding. "Preston is soft. Everything about him is soft. I'm 300 pounds of prime American beef, darling," I grunted, pulling her closer. "Built for comfort, not for speed." "Oh, I don't know," she purred, her lips trailing a fiery path down my stomach, making me shudder. "I think you're built for both." The whole rig was starting to rock. I was pretty sure the suspension was groaning in a way it usually only did on a bad stretch of I-80 in Wyoming, with a full load of steel. The little pine tree air freshener I'd forgotten about was swinging back and forth from the rearview mirror like a metronome, keeping time to our own chaotic, breathless rhythm. Every groan of the truck's frame, every squeak of the shocks, was part of the music. It was wild. It was perfect. It was a scene straight out of my wildest, most unbelievable road fantasies, the kind you have on a long, lonely haul through Texas at 3 in the morning. And that's when it happened, just as the world was narrowing down to nothing but her scent, her touch, her taste, just as we reached that perfect, breathless peak where time stops and the only thing that exists is the two of you. Knock, knock, knock. A hard, official-sounding knock on the driver's side door, sharp, imperative, the kind of knock that doesn't mean, "Can I borrow a cup of sugar?" We both froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. Her head shot up, her eyes wide. "State police, open the door," a voice boomed, cutting through the night and shattering our perfect bubble. Panic, pure, cold, adrenaline-fueled panic. It hit me like a bucket of ice water. We were in the middle of nowhere. I was half naked with a beautiful, also half-naked woman in the back of my truck. A woman who was married to a very rich, very powerful man named Preston Ainsworth III. A man who had no doubt reported his $250,000 Bentley stolen and his wife abducted. This looked bad. This looked spend the night in a county jail and end up on the 10 o'clock news with a blurry photo and the headline, "Trucker's Sinful Sleeper." Bad. "Oh my God," Serafina whispered, her voice trembling. The wildcat was gone, replaced by a terrified kitten. She scrambled for her dress. "Preston, he must have called them. He tracked my phone." "Sir, I'm not going to ask again," the cop yelled, his voice impatient. I could hear the crackle of his radio. The beam of a powerful mag light cut through the front window, sweeping across the empty seats like a searchlight from a prison tower. "Just a minute, officer," I yelled back, my voice cracking like a teenager caught with his dad's Playboy collection. Was, sleeping. Long day on the road. Deep sleeper. It was a frantic, whispered scramble. A silent comedy of errors in the dark. "My shoes. Where are my shoes?" she hissed, crawling around on the floor, her silhouette a mess of flailing limbs. "I don't know. I can't find my pants," I whispered back, tangled in a sheet and trying to locate my jeans in the dark. "How can you lose a pair of pants this big? They have their own zip code." "Is this them?" she whispered, holding up a greasy rag. "No, that's for checking the oil." The cop banged on the door again, harder this time. The whole cab shook. "Sir, step out of the vehicle." "Now." Okay, new plan," I whispered urgently, my mind racing. "Get back on the bunk. Get under the blanket. All the way under. Do not make a sound. Don't breathe. Don't move. Become a lump. You're a boring, inanimate lump. You understand?" She nodded, her face pale in the gloom, and scrambled onto the bunk, pulling the thick, heavy comforter over her head. I yanked the privacy curtain shut, plunging the sleeper into absolute darkness. I took a deep breath, trying to slow my racing heart. I ran a hand through my messy hair and hopped, still pantless, into the front of the cab. I left my shirt off. Maybe looking disheveled and half asleep would sell the story. I unlocked the door and opened it just a crack, squinting into the blinding flashlight beam like a grumpy bear woken from hibernation. "Sorry, officer," I said, trying to sound groggy and annoyed. "You wake a man up like that, you're liable to give him a heart attack. What's the problem?" The cop was young, crew-cut, all business. He had the kind of jaw that looked like it was carved from granite. He looked me up and down, bare chest, sleep-rumpled hair, no pants, and his expression soured. "Sir, we received a bolo alert. A Mr. Preston Ainsworth III reported his wife missing. She was last seen at a service station near your vehicle. Have you seen a woman matching this description?" He held up his phone. On the screen was a professionally shot photo of Serafina. She was smiling, perfectly coiffed, dripping in diamonds at some charity gala. She looked like royalty. She looked absolutely nothing like the beautiful wild-haired mess currently hiding under my blanket. I put on my best, aw shucks, simple-minded trucker face. I scoffed, a little puff of air. "Her? Officer, with all due respect, take a look around." I gestured at my messy cab, the fast food wrappers, the general lived-in chaos. A woman who looks like that wouldn't get within 100 feet of a rig like this unless she was serving a subpoena. I ain't seen nobody but asphalt for the last 3 hours. The cop was suspicious. I could see it in the narrowness of his eyes. He shined his flashlight past me, into the cab. The powerful beam danced over the passenger seat, the floor littered with snack wrappers, my collection of maps. And then it stopped. It stopped on something small and sparkly, lying on the black rubber floor mat like a fallen star. A single diamond earring. A very expensive, very out of place, very, very incriminating diamond earring. My blood went cold. It must have fallen off when she climbed in. The cop's eyes slowly moved from the earring on the floor up to my face. A slow, knowing smirk spread across his lips. He'd found his probable cause. My heart didn't just sink. It plummeted straight through the floorboards and into the dirt below. I was cooked. It was over. My life as a free man was measured in seconds. And then, from behind the curtain. Achoo! It was a tiny, delicate, little sneeze. A rich lady sneeze. But in the dead silence of the night, it was as loud as a cannon blast. The cop's smirk vanished. His hand dropped to the butt of his sidearm. "Who's back there, sir?" The game was up. There was no talking my way out of this. Kidnapping, contributing to the delinquency of a rich person, grand theft, Bentley by association, whatever they'd call it. I was done. Unless... In that split second, my brain, which had been on vacation in paradise, came roaring back to life, fueled by pure, unadulterated desperation. There's a code on the road. You don't mess with a man's rig. And there's a code in my own head. Sam McCarty does not go down without a fight. Or at least without a ridiculously stupid attempt at a getaway. I did the only thing I could think of. I gave the cop a big, stupid, toothy grin. That's just my cat. Fluffy. Got allergies. And then I slammed the heavy solid steel cab door right in his face. Wham! "Hey!" he yelled, stumbling back with a curse. I didn't wait for an invitation. I hit the lock button, dove across the seat like a walrus doing ballet, and slammed my hand down on the ignition. Bessie's engine didn't just start. It exploded into a deafening, furious roar that shook the very ground. The cop was banging on the window, his face a mask of fury and surprise, his mouth forming words I couldn't hear but could definitely understand. "Hold on," I screamed to the back, not sure if she was a lump or a person anymore. I threw the truck in gear, a move so fast I probably stripped a gear tooth, stomped on the accelerator, and old Bessie lurched forward like an angry bull. Gravel and dirt flew everywhere in a massive cloud. The cop had to jump out of the way to avoid being turned into a pancake with a badge. I cranked the wheel hard, and the semi tore out of the overlook and onto the dark, empty road, the trailer fishtailing behind us like a giant, angry tail. I could see the cop in my rearview mirror, scrambling back to his patrol car, yelling into his radio. A Benny Hill chase scene was about to commence, only the music was the screaming of a turbo diesel, and my own frantic heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Are you insane?" Serafina shrieked from the back, her voice muffled by the blanket. I could hear her getting tossed around like a doll in a washing machine. "Probably," I yelled back, my eyes glued to the road, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles were white. "Did you have to sneeze?" "It was dusty," she screamed, a sound that was half terror, half hysterical laughter. "And my name is not Fluffy." I saw the cop's headlights flash on behind us, followed by the strobing red and blue. He was coming, but this was my world. He had a Crown Vic on pavement. I had 18 wheels of all-terrain fury and a death wish. I saw a turnoff up ahead and made a split-second decision. I veered off the road and onto a dirt track that was probably used for power line maintenance. Bessie bucked and groaned, the cab bouncing violently, but she held on, chewing up the rough terrain like it was nothing. The patrol car tried to follow, but it wasn't built for this. I watched in the mirror as his headlights bounced wildly, scraped bottom with a shower of sparks, and then fell further and further behind, until they were just a faint, angry glow in my massive dust cloud. We drove for another 10 minutes in manic, bouncing silence before I finally slowed down, pulling into a thick grove of Joshua trees where the rig was hidden from the road and the sky. I killed the engine. Silence. My knuckles were still white. My chest was heaving. The only sound was the metallic ticking of the cooling engine. Then from the back, a small giggle. It grew into a laugh, a wild, uninhibited, absolutely joyous laugh. Serafina crawled through the curtain, her dress half on, her hair a glorious tangled mess, her face streaked with dirt and tears of laughter. She looked like a Valkyrie after a particularly good battle. "I cannot believe you just did that," she gasped, clutching her stomach as she stumbled into the passenger seat. "You slammed the door on a cop." "I can't believe you sneezed," I shot back, but I was grinning from ear to ear. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a giddy, intoxicating rush of pure triumph. A cat? That's the best I could come up with. A cat? We both broke down, laughing, a deep, shared, hysterical laugh that echoed in the small cab. We were fugitives, we were idiots, and we were more alive than anyone else on the planet at that moment. She finally caught her breath and crawled fully into the passenger seat, not caring about the dirt or the mess. She looked at me, her eyes shining in the dark, full of a light I hadn't seen before. "Preston would have surrendered," she said, her voice full of awe and wonder. "He would have had his lawyer on the phone in 5 seconds. They'd be negotiating a settlement. He would never have slammed the door." She leaned over, grabbed my face with both hands, and kissed me. It was different from the first kiss in the sleeper. It wasn't just hunger. It was admiration. It was excitement. It was the start of a whole new, terrible, wonderful idea. We were in the middle of nowhere. I was a wanted man, technically. A cop fleeing suspected trophy wife napper. She was a runaway socialite, with no phone, no money, and only one earring. We were a complete and utter, beautiful disaster. She pulled back, her lips still close to mine, her breath warm. "So," she said, her voice a low, thrilling whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. "Where to now, outlaw?" I looked out the windshield at the dark, unknown road ahead. My old life, my roots, my schedules, my predictable runs to Omaha and back. They were all gone, left behind in a cloud of dust with a very angry state trooper. And I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I had no idea what was going to happen next. I put my hand on the gear shift, the cool metal of familiar comfort in this brand new world. I grinned, a real, wide, reckless grin. "Darlin'," I rumbled, firing Bessie back to life, her engine a low, conspiratorial growl. "I have no damn idea, but we've got a full tank of gas." And I pulled my rig back onto the road, driving off into the night with a crazy, beautiful woman by my side, no destination in mind, and a whole lot of trouble hot on our heels. It was the best damn day of my life.